Do they show up? If not, don't take advice from them.
Good advice. And finfluencer, I'm guessing that sounds for financial influence.
Yes, yes. Sorry, yeah. Finfluence is the unqualified finfluencers, which you see loads of them. Like you said, they're signing people up for these courses, get rich quick schemes.
Yeah. I believe some of them say they use trading bots and things like that as well, where they say you're guaranteed not to lose and. Yeah. No one can guarantee you're not going to lose. Oh.
No, as soon as anybody says that, then walk away.
Yeah. Good. Is there any money habit that wealthy people tend to have in common?
Quite often they can be quite tight. Yeah, they keep their money close.
Yeah.
I also know lots of wealthy people who are very generous with their money as well. So that's not a rule of thumb. But I would just say that they make good decisions more often than not. And are typically have been willing to take some degree of risk along the way. Now, that might not be a huge risk. It just might mean that, let's say they had a multi-asset investment portfolio inside a pension or an ISA, and they decided to have most of that exposed to the stock market because as an asset class, over a long period of time, that's typically going to get you a better return than the banks or commodities or commercial property would, for example. Mm-hmm. And then there's others who've taken a far higher degree of risk, such as business owners that invest a lot in themselves and their own ventures, who've done very well from that. So yeah, I'd say it's a combination of making good decisions and risk, but considered and managed risk, often through advice.
Okay, so being quite tight though, I think that's something that helps the rich stay rich. Because I did read something quite a while back. I think it was called like How the Rich Get Richer and the Poor Get Poorer. And it was just basically around being tight, to be honest. We're two people who generally don't have much to live on or live check to check.
Yeah.
They are normally quite messy with their spending and just, walk down the streets, walk into a shop, buy almost £2 for a bottle of 500ml bottle of drink these days. Mm-hmm. And they don't realize how much that £2 adds up along with their other spending and just takes away all their money almost instantly when they get paid.
Yeah. And look, the last thing those people want to hear is someone like me saying, if you invested like £2, that could be worth this much over this much.
Yeah.
That's not what they want to hear. But yeah, generally you're right. Just overall decision making is just better. And that generally comes with being a little bit more, keeping that back pocket zipped up and keeping your money closer. Yeah. Is a big part of that.
Which is very hard of how much everything costs in the supermarket these days. But
yeah, I know.
Try.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's we can sit here and give advice and everything, but the realities of for many people what life is like is hard, and living in the UK is expensive.
Yes.
So, I'm not going to be one of those guys that says, every single person has got the ability to make themselves loads of money, because that would be disingenuous. But everybody can make better decisions. And then combined with that, we want our governments to create environments that provide more opportunities and more jobs and more growth, and working together, that can create a better society. But that does also mean that everybody individually has to help themselves as well.
Yeah, exactly. So what's your opinion? Should people track every penny, or is that too extreme?
I don't think that's too extreme in the short term. So you don't need to track your every penny forever. But what I would suggest is, if you are struggling to save and you're struggling to put money aside, then you do need to at least do an exercise where you are tracking everything that you're spending. Do that for a month, or go back and look at your last month or 2 months or 3 months and take an average of what you're spending each month and what you're spending that on, and try and categorize that into essentials. Obviously bills, rent, mortgage, all those things, you're going to have to spend that. That has to be spent. And then you have food, and you have clothing, and you have going out and entertainment and subscriptions and things like that, which are those are things that make life worth living. You know, it gives you colour, and I wouldn't suggest do anything different with that. But beyond that, you know, going out and having coffees, buying things online you don't need, and we're all guilty of it. Try and find out exactly what that costs you, and then once you've done that exercise, the next step is to, every time you get paid, that amount that you've been spending frivolously, put that into savings, ideally into a pension, and get the tax relief benefits as well. And then the third step is automating that, and do that every month, and then try and be a bit more considerate with your purchases, and that'll make an enormous difference to you down the line.
I think a lot of us find purchases that we give excuses for due to our overloaded lifestyles.
Yeah.
And, they think every now and then ordering on Deliveroo or Uber Eats isn't that detrimental to their bank account, but one person probably can't eat on Uber Eats for less than 15 quid, whereas you could probably cook for a few days on 15 quid. And I have a friend who's just constantly, a few times a week, on Uber Eats.
Yeah.
And I tell him, do you know how much money you would save over a month? And I made him calculate it the other day, and he did say he'd probably save about 500 quid.
That's incredible. And look, that's it's a nice thing to do if you've got friends over, or if it's a Friday evening, all part of life. But if you're spending 500 quid a month, then, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah.
You can really help yourself out there. That's a fair chunk of surplus income each month that you could have, which you don't have to necessarily give up. If you're worried about not having access to it because, I don't know, you're worried about job security, whatever it might be, then just put it away into an ISA, cash ISA, stocks and shares ISA, whatever you're comfortable with. But make sure you're taking it out of your bank account and giving it to your future self.
So when he gets paid,
instead of giving it to Uber Eats.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think, as you said earlier on, so when he gets paid, he should just take that money, pull it into his savings. He probably feel a bit more guilty taking money out of his savings just to buy a burger from Five Guys.
Yeah, and that's good. If he feels that's not a bad guilt to have. That's a guilt that's a helpful guilt.
Yeah.
And he'll quickly get over that because he's realising he's doing the right thing. So that guilt will turn into he'll feel good about himself.
So are there small realistic changes that most people can make that will transform their finances over time?
Yes. We touched on it earlier, but if you have savings, little things like shopping around and switching to better interest rate accounts,